Did you know that there is a creature mentioned in the Bible that terrified not only men, but was considered a threat to the divine order itself? A creature so powerful that God had to demonstrate his dominion over her to prove his absolute sovereignty? I'm talking about Leviathan. And here is something that 99% of Christians never realized. This creature appears exactly 6 times in Scripture. Not 5, not 7.6, and this is no coincidence. But here is what will explode your mind. Recent archaeological discoveries in Ugaritic and Babylonian texts revealed that Leviathan was not just a poetic metaphor, it was a cosmic reality that represented primitive chaos, the absolute opposite of the divine order. The renowned biblical archaeologist John Day of the University of Oxford found that each of these 6 mentions follows a precise mathematical and theological pattern, a pattern that connects creation to final judgment, passing God's sovereignty over chaos. But there is something that modern translators didn't tell you about these passages, something that was hidden in the original Hebrew for thousands of years. A discovery that completely changed my understanding of the nature of spiritual conflict and God's plan. At the end of this video, you will never read Job, Psalms, or Isaiah the same way. You will find out why number 6 is not accidental, as Leviathan connects Old Testament prophecies with the apocalypse, and what specific message God was coding for us through these 6 mentions. Get ready for a journey that will describe everything you thought you knew about this mysterious creature. Imagine for a moment in the old Middle East for over 3,000 years. You are in a culture where the sea was not a symbol of tranquility, but of absolute terror. For the Hebrews, the sea represented primordial chaos, the abyssless abyss that existed before creation. Now, in this context of cosmic terror, comes a creature that transcends common fear. Leviathan, in Hebrew, Leviathan, literally means the wrapped or the twisted. But this simple translation does not capture even 10% of the terror that this name evoked. In the Canaanite texts of Ugarit, discovered in 1928, we find references to Poten, a 7-headed serpent that fought Baal, the god of the order. But here is the fascinating. When biblical writers mention Leviathan, they are not simply lending mythology. They are making a revolutionary theological statement. Let's go to the first mention. In Job, chapter 3, verse 8, we read, "Cursed it those who curse the days, those who are ready to awaken Leviathan." Job, in his deepest despair, is invoking those who have the power to arouse the creature of chaos. But why would Job mention this? Because in the ancient world, Leviathan was believed to be asleep, contained in the divine order. Awakening him would be to return to primordial chaos. The second mention comes in Job, chapter 41, verse 1. "Can you fish Leviathan with hook or hold her tongue with a rope?" Here God is confronting Job with his absolute sovereignty. Leviathan, who terrorized entire nations, is described as a divine pet. The message is clear. If you can't control Leviathan, how do you want to question the one who created it? But here is where it is interesting, and few realize that. Leviathan is not just a physical creature. In Psalm 74, verse 14, we read, "You have crushed the heads of Leviathan, and this for food to the desert inhabitants." Heads, plural. This directly connects with the Ugaritic texts of the 7-headed serpent. But there is something much deeper happening here. Each biblical mention adds a layer of theological meaning that points to a specific divine pattern. The psalmist is not just recalling past victories. He is prophesying about God's final rule over chaos. And when you map these 6 mentions chronologically, through the Bible, a pattern emerges. A pattern that connects creation, present judgment, and eschatological hope. But there is something much deeper happening here. Something that only reveals itself when you understand the hidden meaning behind number 6 and its connection to the divine plan of redemption. Now let's destroy the mystery. Why exactly 6 mentions? The answer is hidden in 3 clues that scholars took decades to connect. The first track is in number 6 itself. In biblical numerology, 6 is the number of imperfection, of fallen humanity, of what is below divine perfection, which is 7. Leviathan, representing chaos, appears 6 times because it symbolizes everything that opposes the perfect order of God. But wait, there is more. The second track is in the distribution of these mentions. 3 appear in the book of Job, 1 in the Psalms, 1 in Isaiah, and the final that will change its perspective forever. German theologian Hermann Gunkel, an Old Testament mythology expert, found that these mentions follow a deliberate standard. Leviathan as a present and threatening reality. Mention 3, Psalm 74-14. Leviathan defeated in the past. Mention 4, Psalm 104, 26. The lightened, dominated, and controlled. Mention 5, Isaiah 27, 1. Leviathan judged in the future. But the 6th mention? The 6th mention is where everything is explosive. Isaiah, chapter 27, verse 1. In that day the Lord will punish with his hard, big and strong sword, Leviathan, fast snake, and Leviathan, a tortuous serpent, and will kill the dragon in the eye. See, did you realize? Leviathan appears twice in the same verse. Fast snake and tortuous serpent. Scholars of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem found that this refers to 2 manifestations of the same chaos, temporal and spiritual. Now here is where you explode your mind. When you read Revelation, chapter 12, verse 9, about the dragon, the old serpent, called the devil and Satan, you are seeing the final connection. Leviathan was not just a creature. It was a prophetic prefiguration of the final conflict between God and the forces of chaos. The third track is in the literary structure. Each mention appears in specific contexts. Mourning, Job 3. Chaos as the origin of suffering. Divine confrontation, Job 41. God's sovereignty over chaos, historical victory, Psalm 74. Defeated chaos in creation, present order, Psalm 104. The chaos controlled in providence, future judgment, Isaiah 27. Definitely eliminated chaos, but there is an even deeper discovery. Archaeologist William Foxwell Albright found that the word Leviathan appears in contexts that always involve water, sea, rivers, abyss. And in Hebrew cosmology, waters always represent the primordial chaos that God has organized in creation. This means that every mention of Leviathan is connected to the greatest narrative of the Bible, the progressive triumph of the divine order over cosmic chaos. And now you are about to find out how it applies directly to your life today. But what does this ancestral knowledge about Leviathan mean to you today? How can this revelation transform your spiritual life right now? Think for a moment. How many times have you felt like Job, surrounded by chaos that seemed greater than your ability to understand? Those moments when life seems completely out of control, when circumstances roam like a Leviathan around you? Here is the first transforming application. When you understand that God mentions Leviathan 6 times in perfection number, he is reminding us that all chaos in our lives is by nature imperfect and temporary. Chaos never has the final word. Remember the passage where God asks Job, "Can you fish Leviathan with hook?" The hidden message is deep. If you can't control the Leviathan in your life, be a disease, a financial crisis, a destroyed relationship, recognize that there is someone who can. But here is where it is personal. Psalm 104, verse 26, says that God made Leviathan to play in the sea. This means that what looks like uncontrollable chaos for you is, in the divine perspective, completely manageable. God is not stressed with his Leviathan. Does God also put puzzles in our life for a purpose? Absolutely. Each Leviathan you Face is an opportunity to discover a new dimension of divine sovereignty in your life. Let's be practical. When you are facing that situation that seems impossible, the relationship that does not improve, the financial struggle that does not end, the health problem that is not solved, remember the standard of 6 mentions. First, recognize chaos, as Job recognized. Second, confess that he cannot control, as Job was confronted. Third, remember the past victories, as the psalmist did. Room. Accept that God is in control now, as in Psalm 104. Fifth, hope in final resolution, as Isaiah prophesied. Here is a question that can change everything. What if your greatest Leviathans are not obstacles, but opportunities for you to experience the power of God in a way you never imagined? In 1 John, chapter 4, verse 4, we read, "Greater is the one who is in you than the one in the world." The one who is in the world includes all the modern Leviathans who try to terrorize. You stop a moment and think, what is your Leviathan, guys, today? Does that situation that seems greater than your faith, more powerful than your prayers, more lasting than your hope? Now imagine God asking you, just as Job asked, can you fish your Leviathan with hook? When you answer, no, God whispers, but I can, and I already did it. This leads us to a final revelation that will mark your soul forever. So here's the final revelation that ties everything. Leviathan's 6 mentions are not just about a mythological creature. They are about the divine pattern of transforming chaos into order, fear into faith, impossibility into miracle, that each time you read about Leviathan, you are reading about your own spiritual journey. You are seeing how God takes what seems uncontrollable and transforms you into a demonstration of your glory. Number 6 is not accidental because it represents our imperfect humanity facing imperfect situations. But remember, after 6 comes the 7, the number of divine perfection. His personal Leviathan is always the 6th act of a drama of 7 parts. And God always writes the 7th act. In Isaiah's final words about Leviathan. That day the Lord will punish and kill the dragon that is in the sea. It is not a promise only for the eschatological future. It's a promise to your today. I challenge you to do this. The next time you read about Leviathan in the Bible, mentally replace with your current situation. Let God speak directly to your personal chaos through these millennial passages. If this discovery about the divine pattern of the 6 mentions impacted you as much as I impacted me when I first discovered, leave your like now. This shows me that you are ready to dive deeper into the mysteries of Scripture. And in the comments, I want to know, what is your Leviathan, guys, today? How will you apply this divine pattern to your current situation? Share your story. You never know who can be encouraged by your journey. Share this video with someone who is facing your own Leviathan today. Sometimes the person needs to find that their chaos is no greater than the power of God. Remember, your Leviathans do not define your destination. They reveal the magnitude of the God you serve.